World star.
This is a Chinese couple in a matcha shop in California. They somehow got mad and started flipping with the store employees. I mean, this is a matcha shop. It's probably the most calm place you can ever be at.
No, I got some of it.
And this is another Chinese couple on the street. A street performer dressed as a tree pranks them, and their reaction is actual aggression. Chinese people from mainland China sometimes act like they're a fully drawn bull, ready to fire at any given moment. A lot of this has to do with the pressure that they built up throughout their lives. But another major aspect of this is the Chinese characteristic and their mannerism that has evolved since the CCP took over. Sometimes it manifests as a lack of manner, and other times it's just straight up a strange behavior.
注意看，画面中车辆都在有序地排队加油，可偏偏这时候一辆 SUV 车辆耍起了小聪明，直接绕到即将加完油的车前面，准备给我讲什么乱七八糟的规定，赶紧给我加上油。此时后面正常排队的
Even though most of it happened to the older generation that went through the Cultural Revolution, this does not just apply to them. This is a wide spectrum across the current population in China. And this was a recent case I covered for the World Cup qualifier match between China and Japan. This took place in China, in southern China. Afterwards, a soccer fan wearing the Japanese team jersey was swarmed by a mob of Chinese fans demanding that he take it off and that he was a traitor, and later he was cornered and the police forced him to take off his jersey. And here, a woman refuses to give up the seat to the standing passenger and even put up her leg to occupy 2 seats. And in this video, an older woman wants to take off her shoes on the train and place it on the younger woman's side of the seat. And after she refused to comply with the older woman's demand, well, the following ensued.
哎呦，你打到我眼睛了！我眼睛要是瞎了，我打你一辈子！我跟你说，你放下来！我你看，我等哪去？等哪？你等，我等哪？等你家去了。
You can call it entitlement or selfishness. Sometimes it's even just normalized. Now, before we continue the video, if you haven't already, here's a good time to subscribe to our channel as we put out contents exploring the issues with current China and why the CCP causes most of them. And so stay tuned, and the best way is to subscribe to our channel and make sure notification is turned on as we publish many videos throughout the week. And also, if you're interested in supporting China Insider and our mission to tell the story of Chinese people who don't have a voice in China, well, then you can check out our donation link in the description.
你不要说谎，你说谎骗人，这个是一个基本素质的问题，基本素质的问题。这是基本素质的问题。你是有素质，你随便拉垃圾是有素质吗？
Here is a foreigner who's living in China filming a woman and her son who threw garbage randomly onto the street near their apartment. And the foreigner says that they lack character and that they're shameful for doing this. Yet you see the woman and her son seemingly thinking what they did was justified and started to argue back. Other distinct behavior of mainland Chinese people is talking loudly on their phone in public when people tell them to quiet down, while they double down on that behavior. And this man sits in the middle of the train and blocks the cart from going by. He claims that his feet hurts, but he actually bought a standing ticket, which is in China, you buy a spot on the train, no seats for you, and you stand the entire trip. How about a decorative orange tree? Well, it's got no more oranges on it because all these damas came and took all of it, even though these are not edible oranges. So you see this idea of selfishness displayed, that it's all for me, but not for others, right? If things are free, as I covered in my last video about free food or free things, if it's free, it means it's free for me, not for others. Also means that it's free for only me because I will be taking most of it. And this lack of consideration for others also extends when they go on a foreign trip. Like in Japan, this happens so often. One of the prime example is during cherry blossom season. These people will go and shake the trees, make the flower petals fall down like a rain, like a flower rain, take photos or climb onto the trees and essentially ruin the scenery for other people just because they want that one particular photo. You might be watching this and thinking, well, Chinese people aren't the only ones doing a certain number of these things. Other cultures have people doing them too. Right, that's absolutely correct. But it is you could say a pattern, or a majority of the people doing this seems to be Chinese people. And according to you guys' comments, you have some personal encounters. That really brings me to the idea that they're doing this subconsciously. This is ingrained in their system already. This is something that they've been doing, or they've been taught to do since a very young age. And when you're in that society, when everybody around you seems to be okay with what they're doing, then that really becomes the culture of the society. So I'll tell you my personal experience with this. Happened recently. I was at Costco shopping. Afterwards, I went to go get a hot dog and a drink, which is $1.50, Costco, go Costco. And while I was waiting in line for food, and this older Chinese lady comes up to the cashier and wanted to take a soda pop container. And obviously people were telling her, the cashier says this is not free, right? So she takes money out of her pocket and wants to pay for it, which is fine. As she's about to leave, because all of us, like me and this other woman with her baby, we're all watching this thinking she just, didn't speak English, probably wanted a cup, whatever. Then she was about to walk away looking for a straw. And so me and this other lady were telling her that, like the straw's next to the register. So she looks back. She obviously doesn't understand English, right? So I tell her in Mandarin, I'm like, 阿姨, like she was at Nerna. So I tell her in Chinese, right? The straw's over there. She looks at me, she smiles. She's very appreciative of what I just did for her, translating, tell her where the straw is. All this time, she's still smiling at me. Then she proceeds to take the wrapper of the straw, unwraps the straw, throws the paper wrapper on the floor, still smiling at me, thanking me for what, helped her out with. Then she walks away with the drink and the straw. And I was just sitting there super shocked. I was flabbergasted at what just happened. It wasn't just the fact that she walked up, cutting lines. It wasn't the fact that she tried to take the cup. It wasn't the fact that she threw the paper on the floor. It wasn't even the fact that, she was thanking me while she was doing this. It was the fact that this entire step, or sequence of steps, was done so normally for her. It never occurred to her that, dropping garbage on the floor was bad. It never occurred to her that cutting in line was bad. It never occurred to her that things were supposed to be paid for, the cups. None of that. It was just, she probably didn't think that something was wrong. And well, I was just standing there. I honestly felt a little bit embarrassed because, it was just really bizarre to me. Now, in our last video about the free stuff, we had a lot of people in the comments asking about this the IKEA situation, right? Why are people sleeping on the couches and the beds? Like I mentioned, it's normalized. A lot of these things are normalized. It's not just IKEA. People in China use malls in the summertime to use the free AC. That's normal cases, right? I mean, when you get too hot in the summer, you have nowhere else to go. You go to the mall to shop. That's the Western perspective, right? But in China, it's like you have people going to grocery stores. In this video here, I cover this as well. They would lay on the floor, shirtless, sometimes putting their feet up into like where they keep all the cold drinks. So now every drink has a feet presence next to it now. You have people straight up laying on the floor of grocery aisles. How are other people supposed to get groceries? It doesn't apparently matter to them. You got people sitting on the staircases of shopping malls just to, evade the heat, which sure, right? Not everybody has AC at home, which I think Chinese people should all have AC at home, but they're trying to save electricity costs, so they go to the mall. So it's like all these ideas that you not just have one or two people doing it, it's an entire society doing this. We have to talk about another thing that's been normalized. Public toilets, the public toilet situation. And I'm not talking about how readily available public toilets in China are, because that's apparently what the CCP shows want you to believe, that there's great infrastructure when it comes to public toilets. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally going to public toilets as they go to public toilets, if you get what I mean. Okay, I'll show you some samples. Obviously here, they have to be censored for the sake of YouTube. They demonetized my last video about bullying because apparently you can't talk about important issues on YouTube. You got the elevator situation. You got the pre-elevator situation. You got the bushes.
Is this what you do in your country? Is this what you do in your country?
This one is actually in another country, so they took it to Ghana to do this. You have the Tiananmen Square one, which is absolutely ironic, considering that's like the most sacred political place in Chinese Communist Party history. You have people doing it on the streets. It's just like everywhere they have the audacity to do this, not feel embarrassed to just drop down and do that. You got to think what went wrong, right? What happened to the Confucian culture of respect, the ideas of Buddhism and Taoism flowing through 5,000 years of Chinese history, traditional values taught by all these scholars, all gone down the drain apparently after the 1960s, 70s Cultural Revolution, right? Communism happened and Mao decided that a new China needed to abandon all of those values, so that it's very deliberate, right? Not a lot of people talk about this too, which is the reason why the CCP destroyed Chinese culture, the traditional stuff. One of the core reasons is because when you have a tradition, when you celebrate traditional holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, or anything like that, or other cultures, they have their own religious holidays or non-religious holidays, you are celebrating a connection to your ancestry. And when you have an ancestry, you are bound by moral restrictions and barriers. And so you got to get rid of all of that. So the new stuff that you embrace is the CCP, money, and hyper competition, and just individual selfishness, because those are the only things you know now, or you grew up with. Here I'll give you a pretty good comparison. People, how they view the mainland Chinese versus Taiwanese people, right? Both are technically Chinese descendants. People have a much better perception of the Taiwanese people. In fact, the Taiwanese people don't want to be called Chinese people precisely for the reason what the mainlanders are doing around other countries. And then you expand that to East Asia, right? The Japanese, the Koreans, the Taiwanese, how they differ in terms of this appearance of mannerism. Maybe in, deep down, they all hate the Americans, who knows, right? But at least on the surface, they appear more civil. They appear civilized. And that's the big difference. That Chinese people with the deepest culture, in fact, it, kickstarted the other cultures, at least massively influenced them in the old days, have lost that originality of culture, of identity, of, values and self-worthiness and respect for themselves. All of that's gone. And that's my episode on why China doesn't have manners anymore. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts on this particular topic. If you have any personal experience like I did, let me know in the comments, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. All right, until next time, bye-bye.